Welcome to Northeast Christian Church. We're so glad that you're worshiping with us today. If you're online, we're very glad that you're here with us. If you're in the room, obviously, we are super glad that you're here with us. Side note, if you lead worship and then you come up to preach, you get wrinkly t-shirts or long sleeve shirts. It's, Paul had shipwrecks. Pastors have wrinkly shirts. It's okay. I think we'll make it through, though. It's kind of the same thing, isn't it? We're in a series called I Am, Jesus in his own words. And we're studying the 7 times in the Gospel of John when Jesus says, I am. And then he makes a claim about himself. So over the past 4 weeks, we've covered John 6:35, I'm the bread of life. We've covered John 8:12, I'm the light of the world. We've covered John 10:9, I am the gate. And last week, we covered John 10:11, I am the good shepherd. Interestingly, Jesus said 5 times in 50 seconds, 5 times in 50 seconds, that he would lay down his life for the sheep. And I believe that we're about to get into the reason that Jesus said those things today. The reason he said, I will lay down my life, what we're about to dive into, is based on the fact that he knew what was about to happen. Jesus knew what was about to happen. The key statement today is in John 11:25, and it says, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. And this event that we're going to study today in John 11 is pretty incredible. Jesus brings his dead friend, Lazarus, back to life. Yes, you heard that right. He brought a man back to life. He literally raises a man from the dead. Isn't that amazing? It was so amazing, in fact, that it shook up some of the people in his community. Mostly, it shook up the religious leaders and teachers of the day. And Jesus really had a way of making religious people feel a little bit uncomfortable, didn't he? And it seems like when you read the text that this was the last straw. This was the last straw for the religious leaders. What Jesus does and the claim that he makes about himself, the religious people say, all right, that's it. We're done. We're not taking it anymore. We have to get rid of this guy. No more. I can't take it. 3 strikes, Jesus. You're out. It's time to leave. And as we look at this event in John 11, I have 3 observations that I want to make on life. There's 3 observations on life that are found in this text. And I'll give you the first point, and then we'll get into the scripture. The first observation on life inspired by this text is this. We talk about the past. We really like to talk about the past, don't we? We love to talk about the past. I have a couple friends back home in Kansas City that I grew up playing music together and just kind of getting into some trouble with. And every time we get together, it seems like we always talk about the past. We always talk about kind of the crazy things that we used to do when we were kids. And our wives know at this point, okay, nothing good is going to be said for the next 2 hours, 2.5 hours. We're just going to go ahead and tune out. They know when it's time to tune out because we love to talk about the past. And it'll go something like this. It'll be like, hey, man, do you remember that time that we were like 15 years old and we were practicing like flipping our guitars around our backs during the middle of a song and the headstock of your guitar went into my ceiling and my dad was really, really mad? Yeah, that was awesome. That was super cool. Or, hey, do you remember that time that we had a super long rehearsal with our worship pastor, and then we went over to his house, and we ate all of his wife's pregnant snacks, and she almost killed us? Yeah, that was so funny. That was so awesome. We love to tell our stories, don't we? We love stories in general, but we especially love when they're ours. We love to talk about the past. And the story in John 11, it takes place in Bethany, which is a suburb of Jerusalem, just over the Mount of Olives. Bethany was the home of Lazarus and his 2 sisters, Mary and Martha. And because of their friendship with Jesus, they pop up pretty regularly throughout the Gospels. In John 11, the sisters had sent this delegation to Jesus. It was an emergency message, and it said, Lazarus was at death's door. Come quickly. And it seems like they waited until Lazarus was critical, probably because they knew at this point in Jesus' life, there's many people that were trying to kill him. And he would be in danger if he were to show himself so close to Jerusalem. So John 11:4 says this. When he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Sounds pretty optimistic, doesn't it? Some of us already know the story. And then we read that Lazarus actually died while the messengers were still with Jesus. So it might appear that Jesus' optimism was misplaced. After hearing the news about Lazarus, Jesus stayed where he was for 2 more days 2 more days. And then he told his disciples, okay, it's time to go back to Judea where Lazarus is. And his disciples, guess what they did? They did exactly what we do. They talked about the past. They said, Jesus, it wasn't too long ago that these people were trying to stone you. Remember the not so good old days, Jesus? Are you sure you want to go back there? So obviously Jesus had not forgotten about the people that wanted to stone him. You don't forget that sort of thing. But he tells his disciples, we're going. We're going. Get in the car. We're going. Peter, I don't care if you're hungry. We'll stop at Wendy's on the way, okay? We're going. The first portion of John 11:17 says, on his arrival, Jesus, on his arrival. Can you bring the power of that statement into your situation for just a second? On his arrival. On his arrival, Jesus, he came to where you are. He came to your place. On his arrival, Jesus came to your rescue. On his arrival, Jesus came to help you out. On his arrival, Jesus stepped into your situation. He stepped into your heartache. He was there. And he's here now. Let's move on. John 11:17, it says, on his arrival, Jesus, he found that Lazarus had already been dead in the tomb for 4 days. So Jesus finally arrived 4 days after Lazarus died. Now that's a pretty long time. The Jews believed that the spirit of someone could linger around their body up to 3 days after the body passed away. So 4 days might be kind of symbolic here. It meant that the ghost was gone. It's been too long. There's nothing that anybody can do about it now. Man, I wish Jesus just would have made it on time, you know? Jesus always running late. I wonder if Jesus maybe arrived on day 4 on purpose. John 11:18 and 19. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. Mary and Martha were being consoled by some of their friends, and they had made a 2-mile trek from Jerusalem. They were probably going to be there for a while because the Jewish period of mourning decreased incrementally from the 3rd day, and it ended after a year. So they'll be mourning for a while. Let's move on. John 11:20 begins this way. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had just been here. Lord, if you had just been here. Have you ever said that to God? I have. Lord, if you just been here. We like to look at the past, don't we? Think about this for a second. Martha knows who Jesus is, and the first thing she said is, Lord, if you had only been here a few days ago. Lord, if you just shown up when I wanted you to. If. And how many times have we said, Lord, if you had shown up in my marriage, maybe I'd still be married. If you had shown up in my marriage, maybe I wouldn't be hurting the way that I'm hurting right now. Maybe I wouldn't have hurt my spouse that way, or maybe I wouldn't have been hurt that way. Lord, if you had just shown up and helped me with my kids, maybe they wouldn't have made those mistakes. If you had been there during that job interview, maybe I would have gotten that job that I really wanted. If you had guided me, Lord, if you had just been there and guided me on how to handle the situation, then maybe I wouldn't have made such a big mess of things. If you had just been there. If you had just been there. If you had just shown up on my timeline and according to my plan, then things would be perfect, Lord. But why don't we choose to change the if to for? We have to learn to change the if to for. For you had been there. Jesus, for you were there, because Jesus has always been there. He's always been there during your problems. He's been there during your concerns. He's been there during your sleepless nights and your stressful days where you think there's no end in sight. He's never left, never. He's been with you through the whole process. But guys, it's going to happen on his timeline, not ours. Change the if to for and see what God does through that. For you had been there. Because we all know, probably, that the healing of Lazarus would take place, but it would be for God's glory, and it would take place on Jesus' timeline. So John 11:21, Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been there, my brother would not have died. And sometimes we can't live in the present because the past overshadows everything that we do, right? Have you ever been there? We're just paralyzed by the thought or the belief that if this wouldn't have happened, If that just wouldn't have happened, my life would be so much better. Or if that would have happened, maybe my life would have been so much better. Let's move on to John 11:22. But I know that now, even now, God will give you whatever you ask. Let's hold that thought for just a second. We're going to read John 11:23 and then the first part of verse 24. Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again on the last day." And Martha answered. She said, "I know." And I love that part because I kind of think of kids. Have you ever been hanging out with a kid before and they ask you a question and then you give them the answer and they're like, "I know." You know. You just asked me the question. How could you? That doesn't make any sense. "Oh, I'm sorry, you're 11. I forgot you're 11 and you know everything." "Oh, okay." So Jesus says, "Oh yeah, your brother is going to rise again." And then Martha says, "Oh yeah, Jesus, I knew that. I know." And Jesus says, "Why are you so worried about the past then, if you know? Why are you so worried that I didn't show up 2 days ago if you knew? Because if you knew, you would just say, 'The Lord has arrived,' upon his arrival." Watch what he's going to do. Let's decide not to worry about the past, but let's live in the present with him. So the last portion of John 11:24 says, "So Martha answered, 'I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day.'" And she's still really not getting what Jesus is saying. It's true, okay, that there are good things to remember about the past. Remembering the past is fun sometimes. It's great. God tells us to remember about his forgiveness, about his love, about how he brought us out of something. But Martha's coming to Jesus saying, "I know you're going to do something, but the timing, it's just not really right for me, God." And I know that's got to speak to somebody in the room today. It speaks to me. "Lord, I know you're going to do something, but your timing, that's just not really working out for me right now." Pesky Jesus, he's always running late. And rather than think and worry too much on the troubles from the past and grumble and complain, why don't we use those moments to honor God, to remember the things in the past that God has done for us? But we have to live in the present because he has a future for us. Again, it's fun. It's fun to talk about the past, but let's not stay there. Let's not stay there. The second observation on life found in this story is this. We hear the answer. So number one, we talk about the past, and number two, we hear the answer. I think most of you would agree that life is full of learning, isn't it? There are many people that speak truth into our lives on a daily basis, probably more than we realize. We spend a lot of our time taking in information, taking in answers to questions that we have. And sometimes it's not even people that give us those answers. Has anyone Googled anything like this morning? No? Oh. I definitely have. What about Google? Okay, there's 63,000 Google searches every second. 63,000. That's 5.6 billion searches a day. That's 2 trillion global searches a year. What? And guess what else? I Googled that information. So they could be padding their numbers. I have no idea. There's no way for me to know. But we can move beyond the past and into the future with confidence because we can learn. And then we can find the answers. But what's important to remember is the answer that Jesus is about to give Martha today is the only answer that really matters. In John 11:25, the first half of that verse says, Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life." Resurrection, what a weird concept. We talk about it at Easter and certain times of the year, but all it is simply bringing something back to life. Bringing something back to life. Reheating your meal in the microwave doesn't count. First responders save lives every day, right? But this is resurrection from the dead. 4 days dead. Dead. Jesus claims to be the resurrection and the life. Let's continue in the text. John 11:25 and 26 says this. Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die." Do you believe this? And you can't really blame Martha, can you? Okay, so no theologian in her day projected resurrection before the last day, okay? The theology of resurrection in this time period was an end times event. It was not a present day possibility. Jesus was claiming, "I am here right now, the author of life. Do you believe this?" John 11:27 said, "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." Yes, she got it. But hold that thought too. Because what she was doing was what most of us do in a crisis. We can say the right things, can't we? And then we walk away without getting from Jesus what he has offered. Many of us listened and learned and heard. Many people give us answers. But are we really listening? Jesus asked Martha, "Do you believe this?" And she quickly says, "Yes, of course I believe that." And how easy it is for us to do the same thing. We listen, we learn, we study, we get excited, we say the things, we say the right things. We agree with what Jesus says about how we need to live our lives, about how we need to help others. But do we actually do what he says? Because we can have all the answers, but if we never apply them, then what's the answer good for? We say, "Yes, Lord, your life." Yeah, of course you are. But do we live like it? Does that truth come out of us as we live it? Does that truth come out of us as we share it with other people? Do we believe that Jesus is alive within us? Do we believe that truth gives us the opportunity, and even more than that, the responsibility to tell someone else that they can also have life? On his arrival, Jesus. If he's arrived in your life, are you acting like it? Am I acting like it? The question might be a good one to ask every morning before your day starts. Am I living like Jesus has arrived in my life today? People need to hear that Jesus is life. So don't live in the past. You know the answer. And the third simple observation on life inspired by this text is we see the impossible. We see the impossible. Martha told Mary that Jesus wanted to see her in the portion of the story. And as soon as Mary saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and she said the same exact thing to Jesus as her sister. "Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And I'm guessing that belief was tossed around quite a bit those past few days. If Jesus had just been here, Lazarus would still be here too. My brother wouldn't be dead. If God had just shown up, I wouldn't be so heartbroken. John 11:33-35. Moving on. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit, and he was troubled. "Where have you laid him?" Jesus asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. And Jesus wept. Jesus wept. Jesus knows us so well, doesn't he? We see it. We see it right here. We see it every day in our lives. But in this specific instance, we see it. With the rational, task-oriented Martha, Jesus responded to her question with a theological discussion. Now, with the more emotional Mary, he shared her heartfelt, passionate response to loss. Jesus was moved to tears. Jesus wept. And what was it that made him weep? Maybe it was the sadness of his friends. Maybe it was death itself, or maybe it was their lack of faith. Or maybe it was his impending torture and death. Jesus had plenty to be troubled about. And it was likely a combination of all of those things. But here's what we know for sure. This is our Jesus. This is our Jesus. He's not sitting on the sidelines, unmoved by whatever pain that you're going through. He empathizes with our pain because he has walked our path. He will cry with you. He will sit in your pain with you, and he will whisper, I know what you're going through, because he does. John 11:36-38. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of a blind man have kept this man from dying?" So Jesus, once more deeply moved, he came to the tomb, and it was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Standing in front of the stone, knowing what he was about to accomplish, he wept. Even knowing that he would bring him back, he wept at other people's pain. Some people at this scene, they're moved by how much Jesus loved Lazarus, but it never fails. There's always a couple critics, right? So let's move on. John 11:39-40. "Take away the stone," he said. "But, Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there's a bad odor, for he has been in there for 4 days." Like Jesus didn't already know that. Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So put yourself in her shoes for just a second. Think about the gravity of the situation. Martha had just told Jesus she knew that her brother would rise, that she believed in Jesus, she had faith, and now she's worried about the smell. She's worried about the past. God, I want to believe you so bad. I really want to believe that your resurrection in your life, but there's a smell from the past coming back. There's something coming back and I can't move past it. I don't know about you, but I can relate to that. Someone needs to hear this right now. I don't know what life problems you're facing. I don't know what your individual situation is. I don't know what you did that now you think you can't be forgiven for. I don't know what you did that you think you can't be made new or brought back to life. But don't live in the past. Okay? God has it under control. He has the answers, and He's been telling you. He's been telling you the answers. Jesus is calling out to you today, saying, if you believe, you will see God's glory. If you would just believe, His glory will shine according to His timing. So John 11:41 through 43. So they took the stone away. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you've heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. And when he said this, Jesus called out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Come out, Lazarus. The people at the grave had heard of Jesus' power, and they believed that he probably could have prevented Lazarus' death. But this is a whole other story. Bringing someone who's dead back to life is impossible. It's impossible, guys. Nobody can do that, okay? No matter how powerful. I'm here to tell you that what you think is impossible in your life is not impossible. It's not. There are moments that we're all just like Lazarus. We are all just like that, waiting to be brought back to life, and we all have a God who's ready to make that happen. So I want to ask you a very direct question. What is keeping you in the tomb? What's keeping you in your tomb? God can't bring me back. That's impossible. I wreck all my relationships. I mess up too much. No, you don't understand. God can't bring me back. I'm an addict. I'm an addict. And I just can't let this go no matter how much I know it's bad for me, no matter how much I know it messes things up and leaves me feeling empty. I just can't stop. God can't bring me back. I'm an addict. God can't raise me back up. I'm done. It's over. Maybe, if God had been here 4 days ago, maybe then He could have saved me. Maybe if God had been here 4 weeks ago, He could have saved me. Maybe if He had been here 4 months ago, He could have saved me. Maybe if He could have been here 4 years ago, before I really sealed the deal, you know? Maybe He could have saved me then, but now He can't. And in all that unbelief and doubt, there's this gentle voice of God saying, hey, just come out. Come out. It's okay. I'm the God of the impossible. Come out. He said, Lazarus, come out, and he did. John 11:44, the dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face, and Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. You're going to tell me that Jesus can do that, but He can't do what you think is impossible in your life. Jesus will meet you where you are and with what you need. What Jesus did for Lazarus was prophetic. It was prophetic of Jesus' own resurrection. It was prophetic of our future resurrection, and it was prophetic of the life that Jesus wants to give you right now. Right now. He is called. The tomb has been emptied. Life has returned, but so many of us are still bound by unbelief. Like Martha, we think that we're praising Him in faith, but He has so much more in store for us if we will simply just shed the grave clothes. Come out of your tomb. Here's the takeaway. Leave the grave behind and walk alive with Jesus. Leave the grave behind, walk alive with Jesus. He has a plan and a purpose for you, and He believes that you're going to move through your past, that you're going to understand the answers He's been giving you, and that you're going to believe that God can do impossible things because He wants to show His glory through you. In church, there's no time like the present for change, as they say. So make your choice. And I would say make it today. If you want to talk, I'll be here. Jesus is here. He has arrived. He's alive. He is the resurrection and the life. If we believe in Him, the impossible happens. If we believe in him, he will resurrect the dead areas in your life that you feel like cannot be resurrected. Believe in Jesus. Believe in Jesus and take off the grave clothes. You don't need them anymore. Let's pray. God, we believe that you can do the impossible. And I ask that if there's anybody here today that isn't sure about who you are and the things that you can do, that your Spirit would move now and bring comfort and confidence into those people's lives. Lord, we want to be made new, all of us. No matter where we are in our walk with you, on this adventure with you, we want to be made new every day. Come make us new. Bring what's dead in our lives back to life. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. If you're online, thank you for being here. Just real quick, I wanted to let you know that we have 2 Christmas Eve candlelight services coming up on Christmas Eve. We have one at 4 p.m., one at 5:30 p.m. So church on Sunday the 26th is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be a 9:30 a.m. brunch. We're all going to hang out, eat some food together, and then we're going to have one 10 o'clock service right here after our brunch. No Thursday service. So thanks for joining us. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you again soon.
Crushing load, whose forms are bending low, who toil along the climbing way with painful steps and slow. Look now for light and golden hours, come swiftly on the wing. Oh, beside the weary road and hear the angels sing. Are hastening on by prophet bards foretold, when with the ever-circling years shall come the age of gold, when peace shall over all the earth its ancient splendors flame, and all the world give back the song which now the